Welcome to Three Questions, where critical thinking is king, and my opinions and research are only here to support your learning and hopefully deeper understanding. Hey, I'm your host of Three Questions, Meghann, and I'm really honored you clicked on today's episode to talk about Pilates. Now, if you're a Pilates teacher, a lover of the method, or thinking about doing it, I hope you really take in and enjoy this episode. Remember, Three Questions is about critical thinking, so I'm going to ask you three questions so you can come to your own solutions. And let's just lay the groundwork, because sometimes Pilates teachers get pretty, I don't want to say excited, but it's important to them because this is what they do for a living. And there's a lot of confusion about what Pilates is. So let me say this. As soon as the words leave my mouth, I have zero control over them. So I'm going to give you permission to agree with some of the things I say and disagree with some of the others. You can agree with everything I say, but hate me. You can also love me and disagree with everything I say. That's the beauty of this platform. What my goal is, if you have this strong belief system, keep it. But maybe seeing the other side or another perspective might, shift things in a positive direction. Who knows? So let's get right into the three questions. Question number one, are you learning the method or just doing Pilates-inspired movement? Don't get upset already. We will go into each question. Number two, can Pilates offer progressive overload, or are you just changing around the choreography? And question three, is your teacher, or are you, cueing the eras? Or are you letting the client cerebellum do the job? Remember, these questions have no, right or wrong. They're just questions. So let's dig into question one. Are you learning the method or just doing Pilates-inspired movement? Well, if you're in the Pilates community, there's always this debate of classical versus contemporary, and they both have merit and value. As someone who developed a methodology, I understand why the classical Pilates people get a little tiffed, because before you change things, you should really understand them. I had a PT take one of my courses and tell me in the course that she thought there was a better way to do what I was teaching. And I said to her, love that, but you don't have joint centration, which was step one of this problem. And what I realized, people often change things based off what feels good to their brain and body. So we need to give people the freedom to do that. But like in yoga, what's interesting, the difference I see in yoga and Pilates is like if you're doing a Bikram or Iyengar yoga, you're following those same exercises. Now, there might be variations based off what your clients need. So Joseph Pilates created this method of movement where he had specific exercises. So the cool thing about Pilates is basically every exercise is kind of the same, but in a different environment. So for my background, neuro and sensory, I feel, and keep in mind, Joe's never answered my phone calls, so I don't know this. If you're not familiar with Pilates, Joseph Pilates is no longer alive. So that was a joke. As my dad would say, when you have to explain the joke, it's not funny anymore, but let's move on. So when you're looking at a roll up and a roll down and rolling like a ball and short spine, it's all the same things, just with different sensory load, whether it's with springs or loops or the mat or the floor or nothing. So how can you get your brain and body to do those movements? So it is a system of exercise, Pilates, okay? So the idea is you're learning a system almost like you're learning a language. And if you want to learn the system of Pilates, I encourage you to go to a classical Pilates teacher. Are all classical Pilates teachers great? Absolutely not. Find yourself somebody that jives with you. You like their personality. You like what they're doing, okay? And classical Pilates teachers don't just teach the classical choreography with no variation. If a client needs a variation, I have seen it multiple times. They are trying to help you learn this system of movement. Okay? So if you're interested or you're a Pilates teacher that always poo-poos classical or didn't like it, maybe you had a shitty teacher. Read the Return to Life book. It's so short. It was just so interesting because how Joe, it seemed how he saw it, it was like, this is a system of movement. He wanted the body to move uniformly. He thought breath mattered. He thought concentration mattered. He thought centering mattered. He thought precision mattered. But here's my problem. These are all just words Pilates teachers use. They don't actually understand what it takes to build concentration and coordination. Question 3 is going to address this. So if you say you work on coordination, but you're not using a cerebellar approach, you're actually not working coordination. You are teaching that person to do that exercise better with those specific cues, which is not a bad thing. Also, what the hell does centering mean? Okay? Think right now, what does centering mean to you? To me, centering is the neurological or nervous system being in alignment. So the visual, vestibular, and proprioceptive systems are all going, yep, we're there. Yep, we're there. Yep, we're there. Most people have dysregulation in those systems. So if you've ever had vertigo or, disorientation, usually one of your systems is giving the other system a different message. And the brain's like, yo, I don't know who to listen to. This is confusing. Now, also the breath is awesome. It's important to breathe. But if you're alive, to quote my friend Shantae, if you're alive, you're breathing correctly. So I like using breath in Pilates. It's one of the principles. But I also don't want my clients to only be able to do a certain thing with a certain breath pattern. Often the things we do in Pilates from a classical and contemporary perspective can actually inhibit a fluid gait cycle because you don't want to be only able to do the exertion or the hip extension when someone is breathing. Think about a baby. Babies breathe so efficiently. Every new parent tells me the same story, that they have to go check the baby because the baby doesn't look like it's breathing. Yeah, because that baby's breathing is efficient as hell. Okay? So sometimes, and talk to any pelvic floor PT, a lot of times Pilates teachers stress the TVA too much. So if you're cueing the TVA to contract while you're doing spinal mobility like extension, those don't match. Over-engaging the TVA becomes a secondary spinal stabilizer. The spinal muscle should stabilize or mobilize. So if you're stabilizing your spine while you're trying to mobilize it, not always the best thing. But what's so interesting about cueing, whether it's Pilates, yoga, or anything, our intention isn't always how the client perceives it. Also, there is not a lot of assessments to assess if what you're asking the client to do, if they're actually doing it, and if there's awareness in the brain. That's why I developed the 4-quadrant stability model. I needed a way to help people assess if they're going in the right direction. Okay, it's been 24 years in the making. I make adjustments every course. We're doing research on it. Not because I believe it's the only way, but I'm trying to help us out as teachers figuring out what the fuck are we actually doing? Is it even working? So back to classical Pilates and contemporary. How about we stop using buzzwords and actually explain what we mean? I know that's hard. If you have questions about that, go back to my episode about communication. I kind of break it down in a way that's super helpful. And when a lot of people are intimidated about putting stuff out there, focusing on your language and how you say it matters, right? Like in the beginning of this podcast, as soon as the words leave my mouth, I have zero control over them. I am telling you my experience and trying to get you to critically think. That's my goal. It might not come across that way. I don't know. Okay? So, do you want to learn the method? Or do you want to do some Pilates-inspired movement, which is fun as hell? Man, I love those Megaformer classes. Shout out to my friend Liz and Danny. They have Megaformer studios down here, Coastal Core in Belmar and other locations, and Pilates Blast in Red Bank. Now, do I disagree with what Sebastian Legree says his method is actually doing? Yeah, there's a lot of things I disagree because he cherry picks research and he talks about Pilates without a full knowledge of it. But I've never had a conversation with him. So I don't know. Maybe he's more of a critical thinker. He's very creative in creating equipment. I feel like those machines are pretty freaking cool. So if you like to do that, do that. But to say Legree and all these other methods aren't based off Pilates, frankly, is bullshit. Okay, the cool thing about Pilates, this is how I define Pilates. And classical Pilates teachers, you might define it differently, but it's selective stabilization. And I prefer reflexive stability because you can't stabilize joints. They need to stabilize. It's a verb. Okay, it's like you can't balance. You have to be balancing, right? It's an act. So this idea that we're mobilizing certain sections of our body, like mobilizing our limbs while stabilizing our spine in certain positions, flexion and extension, sometimes in a neutral or natural curve, or we almost stabilize our limbs and move our spine in flexion, lateral flexion, rotation, all that cool stuff. So also Pilates says it's mind-body. All movement is mind-body. The difference is we actually, well, this is the goal. I don't know if everybody's actually doing this. Focus is needed. A lot of people think they're focused, but they don't have neurological focus. So like at the Neuro Studio, we teach you how to assess and get neurological focus to create a better option for neuroplasticity to happen. Yeah. So I love Pilates inspired movement. I'm the kind of person that loves to vary shit. My brain doesn't like to do the same workout twice. But there's days where I'm like, I want to know the exercises and I want to perfect the exercise. I want to work on the method. So dare I say, what if you could do both? What if you chose to do Pilates as a method and also enjoyed Pilates inspired movement? On the Neuro Studio, Mariska and I teach an equipment class every week. And a lot of it is Pilates inspired movement to help kind of bring in sensory integration. But if you take my classes, I use a lot of classical Pilates exercises. I mean, breaking down saw neurologically is I feel like it's changed my life. I love it so much. So I think you can do both. But I do think that if you want to study the method of Pilates, you should do that. But we should also not poo-poo people who don't want to study the method of Pilates. They want the benefits of that Pilates-based movement. So to answer your question, what do you want? Do you want to learn a methodology? Or do you want to do some Pilates-inspired movement and get your ass moving and feeling good? What is it? Now, 2, can Pilates offer progressive overload? Or are we just changing choreography? Now, progressive overload is, I've been seeing a lot of it. It's like another fancy buzzword. But really, with progressive overload, we're looking to challenge the system, right? If we're always doing the same thing, we're never really challenging that brain and body to grow, get stronger, build more endurance, get hypertrophy, okay? So with progressive overload, much of the research is looking at increasing load or increasing repetition. Now, as someone who actually does clinical research, I'm not poo-pooing people that don't. I know you guys don't like it or are busy. I don't love doing research. I love working with clients. But I sit on both sides of the fence. When I'm doing research, I'm not looking to prove myself right. If I Googled right now, I actually Googled this before, can you use sensory integration or varying the sensory systems and complexity count as progressive overload? And I can find research studies that support that, and also studies that say it has to be load or weight. Because what's so cool about research is we're always continually learning. So just finding one research to support what you say doesn't make you a great researcher. Okay? And I find, can we all just be less angry at people wanting to do different things? Now, how do I like to use progressive overload? I like to use it to build strength and complexity through my sensory systems. That's where I'm at right now. So when I'm lifting weights, I don't like to do a lot of repetitions. It hurts my brain. I feel like I punished myself for years when I was younger doing that. And if I'm being honest, I don't enjoy it. And when I don't enjoy something, I'm not consistent with it. I like lifting a heavier load and pushing it and training my brain to respond to different loads. So after I put 40 pounds over my head with one hand, I then try to do that with 5 pounds. I want my brain to respond to different loads. That's what I want to do. What do you want to do? Are you looking to build strength, endurance, hypertrophy, which means growth in muscles? Or are you challenging your body to respond to different sensory situations to be better at life? All of these are important. And there is research that supports that you can build strength by increasing weight or increasing repetition. So what I want you to hear is, yes, Pilates can offer progressive overload, but that doesn't mean by just changing choreography. So doing one exercise and then doing the exercise completely different is not the same thing. Here's how I am looking to research is, for example, say we're doing a roll down. Okay, so you're standing, you roll your spine down versus a roll up. When we're doing a roll down, that is a closed chained exercise. Our feet are connected to the floor. Okay, there's often no sensory input in our hands, or there could be. And then a roll up is when we're laying on our back, legs are straight, I mean, they could be bent, but let's call legs straight. So basically you're in the same body position, but it is definitely a different sensory load. When you're laying on your back, it's not a closed chain environment at the feet. The feet are kind of either flopped in a little bit of plantar flexion or dorsiflexion. So how about we say, okay, if I want to create complexity or neurological diversity to challenge my brain to get progressive overload that way, roll down with your feet on the floor and then roll up with your feet against the wall, but keep them up against the wall. Man, that is hard as hell because the floor creates a different sensory environment for your back. And we feel round when we're laying on the floor, but we're not. The floor is kind of shifting, especially when you have a big ass like I do, up and the ribs out of place. Okay, so maybe you can also do your roll down with your back up against the wall. Maybe you add load to your hands in both. Maybe you also add a visual exercise. So I love peripheral vision. I'll keep my hands out in front of me. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can see. And if you're in your car, I'll describe it. I'm just sitting up and I've got my 2 thumbs out in front of me, about, 6, each one is 6 inches away from my midline. And as you're rolling up, not changing the distance between your fingers and not letting them go up and down of your visual field. So now I'm challenging my proprioception, my body's ability to know where it is in space and move with my visual system. So that's going to add complexity and can offer progressive load in a different way. Please keep in mind, there is much less research supporting this. Not because it doesn't exist or is valued. It's because it's very hard to research. Unfortunately, one of my professors, I'm completing a doctorate degree right now. I had this brilliant study about the cerebellum and I got really bad news. And the professor said, you literally can't test that. And I was like, yeah, but what if we stimulate the cerebellum? He's like, Meghann, you can't do that. It's actually painful. And I was like, say what? And he's like, yeah, you could use, we can do that to different parts of the brain. But he told me that when you do it to the cerebellum, it's very painful. So you can only do it once. And I'm thinking, I don't want to put anybody in pain because pain is going to be a disruptor to my research study. So a lot of the sensory integration can't actually be studied in a research format. Number one, there's too many variables. And number two, everybody has a unique, diverse nervous system and sensory preferences. Okay? I can only wear pants above my belly button when they're super loose. I'm so specific about my underwear. If you're interested in more about the sensory stuff, I believe it was episode 2. I did a whole episode about this because it's fascinating how cool and unique we are. So, do you care about progressive overload? Okay, you can do it in Pilates, but maybe let's not act like it's the same thing with weight training. What if you got what you can get from Pilates? Really challenging your body's ability to stabilize, which you should be doing during weight training. But maybe you challenge repetition and sensory diversity and complexity. So adding in more sensory cues and seeing how your body responds. And maybe you could also lift a weight every once in a while to challenge your brain and body's ability to respond to multiple loads. I love my husband. Does saying it negate it? But I also love my friends. I'm lucky. I kind of enjoy hanging around with my husband. All right, we've been together since 2011. So people who've been together, married 40 years are like, yo, just wait. But there's things I don't talk to my husband about. I talk to Cheryl. And then I talk to Kate about other things. If I need compassion, if I need someone to coddle me, I call my dad. If I kind of need tough love and someone to remind me how blessed and how lucky I am, I call my mom. Right? So we have multiple people in our life to fill things. We don't need Pilates or weight training to fill all those holes. So ask yourself the question. Number one, do you even care about progressive overload? If you do it with either increasing weight, increasing repetitions or volume, or sensory integration as a way to offer complexity. Those 3 ways. Cool? And if you're interested in that sensory complexity, reach out to me. I'm always looking for research assistants to help. Okay? And the last thing I want to touch upon in this is people always talk about progressive overload and they're like, well, you don't want a plateau. Plateaus are necessary. It's a part of learning. Often when you're in a plateau, it's because your brain needs more time reorganizing and integrating with different sensory inputs like your visual vestibular system and other things. So if you're in a plateau for too long, what I hypothesize, because I don't know what you're actually doing, is what you are doing your brain doesn't like. That doesn't mean stop. Just change that shit up. Maybe you're focusing on too much what your feet are doing. Maybe your hands are a disruptor. Maybe you're focused too much on proprioception. Your eyes need something. When you're stuck in a plateau for too long, that's your brain's way of saying, yo, I'm doing my best. Help a brother out. Cool? And last but not least, question 3. This is more for us teachers, but if you're listening to this as a Pilates enthusiast, keep this in mind. Are you or is your teacher constantly cueing errors? Or are they using more of a cerebellar approach? And you might be like, I don't know what a cerebellar approach is, Meg. Do tell. Number 1, we are taught in Pilates that alignment matters. It's the most important thing. And if the bones are aligned, the muscles will work correctly. Yes, and that is only on somebody who doesn't have sensory preferences and a lifetime experience. Okay? So oftentimes when we force alignment, the only place, can I simplify that again? Rewind the tape. So say we're trying to get someone with better posture and we say, sit up tall. They are going to move from the movement patterns that are available. Those are often the movement patterns causing pain or on their way to get aggravated. It's our job as movement teachers to show the brain what else is available. Okay? How the cerebellum works very briefly. To me, the cerebellum is like the double checker. Okay? We see something, we get directions, our brain creates a motor map. This is how we're going to do it. You do it. And the cerebellum goes, yo, that was not the plan. You moved your spine. I asked you to move the hip. Not the plan. Do it again. Okay, you're getting closer. Do it again. There you go. Keep doing it. Now here's the problem. The cerebellum can be finicky, and the cerebellum only responds to quality of sensory input. So you just telling someone not to move their lower back or giving all these abstract visualization and cues don't always help because there's not enough awareness. Think our job as teachers as to not bark out what's wrong. Nothing annoys me more than someone pointing out everything that's wrong in a client's body and don't think I didn't do that shit too. What is this? A lesson on how much you know? Shut up. Our job is to, in my opinion, be the translator. So when I see someone moving their spine, when I want them to isolate their hip, I need to bring a sensory cue so that the cerebellum feels the error and goes, oh shit. She said not to move the spine, but I can clearly feel I'm moving my spine because this towel is here, or her hand is there, or my eyes are now moving. So if you're a teacher that wants to actually teach your clients to move better long term, Come on over to the neuro side. We teach you cerebellar-based techniques to let the cerebellum be the teacher. Clients love it, and it actually sticks more. This is why when you keep saying shoulders down, their shoulders are still up. Also, maybe their shoulders need to be up and there's a problem down the chain or up the chain. It could be a visual vestibular problem. My rule of thumb is if you have to repeat a cue more than once, the brain and body have zero awareness. They hear you. There is just no awareness. So their brain is actually saying, yo, bitch, I'm doing what you're saying. Cool? Now, if you're a teacher who likes to cue or your clients are used to you cueing a lot, well, do you. Don't change who you are just because I said you shouldn't. You should. Whatever. But think about if you actually want to move better, feel better, you've got to be your own advocate. I say to clients all the time, I am not your landlord. Treat it like you own it. Okay? When you rent a property, you call the landlord when shit goes wrong. When you own a property, damn, you have to do that shit. Ugh, adulting sucks. We have this mold issue in the wall. God, I wish I could just call my mom to deal with it. I've got to deal with it. I'm the adult, apparently. That sucks. But anyway, so that is my methodology of movement. So if I'm working with a teacher or someone that keeps pointing out the errors, I worked with a tennis coach who did that. And I was like, yo, I hear you. If he told me to bend my knees one more time, I was going to lose it. I said, yo, bro, I think I'm bending my knees enough. Obviously, what I'm feeling and what you're seeing aren't the same things. Let's mix it up. So you know what I did? I excessively bent my knees and straightened my legs when I took shots so my brain could feel the difference. At the time, I felt like I was bending my knees. When I recorded myself, yo, that guy was right. I was not bending my knees. But it felt like I was. I didn't have awareness. Now, this could be helpful in life. If you have to keep yelling at your kids, partner, spouse about the same shit, they don't have any awareness of it. I swear to God, it's like my husband always has to leave a blotch on the countertop, coffee, crumbs. He doesn't see it. He says because it's tall, but it does sound meaningful to him. So rather than yelling it all the time, I just wipe the damn counter. Okay, you got to pick your battles, right? I got him to put his socks away, so bravo to me. So I'm coming to the end of the episode. I want to keep this under 30 minutes. So let's review. Question 1, do you want to learn the Pilates method or do you just love Pilates-inspired movement? I love that for you either way. Both are great. And if you find the teacher you're working with is always poo-pooing the other, I don't understand why people have to put other things down so much to lift themselves up. If your shit was that good, people would know. Okay? Just my opinion. Opinions are like buttholes. We all have them. Number 2. Can I say one more thing for number 1? Respect the method. Feel free to change it, but respect it. Okay? Now that's coming from someone who is lucky that my students respect the method. I'm fine with them changing it. But, when I'm long gone, if the method still holds true, I'm sure things are going to change. And you know what? I am going to be okay with that because science and things change. I don't know if Joe would be okay with it. Never met the guy. He did wear weird, oddly small little shorts that it's very diaper-like. I've got opinions. But anyway. Number 2, can Pilates offer progressive overload? Yes, and should it be the place you're looking for progressive overload? I don't know. What are your goals? If you're looking for complexity, sensory integration, okay. But if you're looking to improve strength by moving certain loads, well, maybe you should add some weights. I still do believe most people, when they're doing Pilates, the more you can respond to the load that's given to you, that is increasing load. It really depends on how the person's doing. So weight training people who say it can't happen, I see what you're saying. But just because the person you went to wasn't able to do it, there are a lot of other teachers. Just like in weight training, you're probably a great trainer and there's ones that suck. Cool? And last but not least, is your teacher always cueing your errors? Try to come to a place where you start noticing your errors because that Pilates teacher is not with you out in the real world. This is why people leave Pilates sessions like standing up tall. They take 2 steps and they're back to their other posture. Okay. Pilates has been one of my favorite things to do movement-wise. I personally love classical Pilates on the mat. I like doing Pilates-inspired movement on the Reformer and Cadillac. I also love classical Pilates on the chair. And it depends. Sometimes I'll go classical Pilates on the Reformer. I like to mix it up. My brain craves diversity. I wish I was somebody who could do the same workout over and over again and really build expertise and strength in that workout, but that's not how my brain works. So if you're someone who likes the repetitiveness, try classical. If you hate it, don't beat yourself up. And the last thing I want to say to leave you with about the cerebellum. Now, in both Pilates, both classical and contemporary or Pilates movement, there is a lot of talk about the tremor of truth, a lot of people call it. Now, this is all based on theory. This is what we were not able to study in the lab, but I am not done. I am going to figure it out. Because people say when you're shaking like that, it's actually neuromuscular communication and strength. It's not. Now, what we test is often when you're getting that tremor, it starts with the movement and stops with the movement. If you have a tremor that continues after the movement stops, that is something different. But if you are on the Legree, the Reformer, in a mat class, and your body is tremoring, think neuroplasticity is all about focus. So that tremor doesn't burn more calories. That tremor is your cerebellum's way of saying, I see what we're trying to do, but I need more information. Okay? So based off the sensory input you're giving, the cerebellum is almost overworking and overriding. So don't think the tremor is a bad thing. Think of it as an opportunity to add a visual, vestibular, or different proprioceptive cue. If you get to a tremor, my theory, based on actual science of the cerebellum and research, is that you're in the right direction. It's your cerebellum noticing an error and trying to correct it, but it needs more proprioceptive, visual, or vestibular information. Teachers, please stop telling clients that that tremor means they're working hard. They are working hard, but there are solutions to get past that to actually get neuroplasticity. And I just saw this on social media, and I don't put others down to lift myself up, but getting a neuro client to tremor like that is not because they're working hard. It's a neurological problem interfering with neuroplasticity. If you would like more information on that, please reach out and please ask me questions. Okay, we're still learning more about the cerebellum. We know so much, but we know even less. It's fascinating to me. I will share that switching to the cerebellum model makes teaching more fun. My clients are getting better results. It translates on Zoom and in person. So teachers, if you're interested, reach out. I am here to help you, not to shame you. And if you're like, Meg, I love the way I teach. My clients like it. Don't change a thing, but just promise me you'll keep questioning, even me, and keep learning. So thank you guys so much. I hope you have a deeper understanding of Pilates. I hope you'll try it. I hope if you hated it, you'll try it again with a different teacher. It's really been helpful to my body and my clients. And I guess that's it. So I will see you next time. And thank you for your attention and ability to challenge yourself in today's episode.